Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Cagesiders. Jeremy along with the coach, Angelo Reyes. We're going to be joined today by Professor Robert Drysdale. And a little bit later on in the show, our favorite guest of all time, Alessandro Ricci. He's going to join us once again to give us a breaking news kind of update on his fight coming up. Coach, how are things, man?
It's great, man. It's great now that you're back. I was missing you.
You missed me all.
You left me here with Ari.
I know.
Ari, of all people, for the weekend.
Well,
man.
he needs supervision.
He was showing me all his Tinder dates.
You know he can't be left alone. He'll burn the house down, Angelo. Jeez. And he's not on Tinder for the last time. He's on J-Date this week.
Sorry.
This week. He finally scraped enough change together to get a full membership profile, so he's out there. Ari, Flowmaster 22. On J-Date. So there you go. That's his profile. You can look him up. Angelo, we had a great weekend of fights. Bellator 170. Like you kind of hinted at, I flew out there, took the show in. Good show. And, number one, you went back and watched 170. What were your impressions of the main card?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, again, Scott Coker, I'm a fan of Scott Coker. I think he's a great promoter. Bellator, again, is a different format. In fact, me and Alessandro were watching it, and he even asked me, he said, hey, Coach, so it's different when you're in the circle instead of the octagon, and which one do you like better? And I told him, I said, actually, for me, I feel like it's a different strategy, circle versus octagon.
Right.
But I like the octagon because of the angles. It's easier to cut people off versus in a circle. It's very hard to cut people off. But we do get a lot of knockouts in Bellator, man. And my favorite fight that I saw, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the Derek Campos Anderson fight, I think it was, but for me it was the Paul Daly fight. I thought that was great. The spinning elbow to flying knee. That was awesome.
Yeah, and it was even more impressive in person. Of course, we're sitting cage side in media row, and there was the audible crack of the knee on skull, collision, and it went from, you could even see, I don't know how much they televised, but the elation turned to real fear.
Oh, yeah?
Brennan Ward was out. He was out cold for a little bit there, moving around, but, he was in pain. You could tell he was in pain, and it got scary real quick. They immediately had the stretcher pulled out there. Now, they would later say, that's precautionary, things like that. And he did give a slight thumbs up whenever he was leaving the cage, but the pictures later he posted online, just a gigantic gash by his eye.
What?
It was definitely one of those knockout of the year candidates early.
Worse than the Michael Page one, the Venom Page.
I don't think it's worse because he didn't, so far, hasn't released anything like any major fractures to his skull like Cyborg got on his skull, the big caved-in skull or whatever. So I don't think it's quite as bad, but it was still pretty brutal to witness in person, even being there, even knowing on those moments directly after that everything was okay, it even shook Paul Daly, who said at the press conference, we're friends, we hang out a lot and everything, and it was one thing to fight him. I already had apprehensions about that, but then you're trying to go out there and do your job and knock each other out and do things like that, win the fight. But when it's your friend and it goes down like that, you hope for the best, and so it even shook him a little bit, and he was kind of not remorseful, but
Well, it's the fight game. Everybody knows. I remember being there on the floor when Manny on the floor side when Manny Pacquiao had got knocked out by Marquez, and even Freddie told me he thought Manny was dead for a second, and
right.
Jinky, his wife, was very shocked, and it's something where our in studio guest, I'm sure he could talk about this. He's been in the cage before. Fighting and it's what you have to accept. I remember Freddie Roach would always tell me, look, if you choose to do this as your occupation, then you have to deal with everything, and everything includes possibility of something like that happening.
Right.
I'll say this though, because I've noticed that concussion-wise, they're taking a lot more precautions. And if you know, we talked about this on our last show, the Showtime card in New York, they were actually doing concussion tests, Jeremy, in between rounds whenever they saw the fighters get rocked or get knocked down.
Right.
So did they do that at Bellator? Is that something that California's doing or no?
They probably did it in cage. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not sure their procedures out there. He was surrounded by medical professionals, though. The referees and everyone that were kind of cleared away. The teams were kind of cleared away, and it looked like doctors doing their thing. They were talking to him.
Okay.
I don't think he was unconscious very long or out of it very long. Like I said, he did give thumbs up and everything else going out, but I'm not exactly sure. That would be good to research what the actual, concussion protocols or anything they might do out there.
Yeah, and I'm just glad that that everybody's becoming more safety oriented. I'm noticing even in MMA now, they're stopping the fights a lot quicker, which I like it when the fights get stopped quicker. Me personally, just because I get it. Like, you don't have to prove to me if you're going in there, you're tough.
Just jump in on that one. Like, I would hate to be the guy with that, that loses the fight because the referee jumped in too soon.
Okay.
Because you know how they feel, right? But I get from a safety
I'm
perspective.
on the coach's side,
for sure. But from a safety perspective,
right?
100%, I agree. Like, I think that I don't think we know the full extent of the consequences of MMA yet. We're still watching these guys retire, and still a very young sport in comparison, at least to boxing. So. Yeah, we don't really know. People are like, oh, we're fine. Boxing is worse. I'm like, I think we got to wait a little longer.
Yeah. Now, I could see me and Robert, like, if Robert actually decides to go back out there and defend his legacy championship title, and I'm in his corner, if it gets to that, it's going to be one of those look in the eyes deep where I'm like...
You don't throw the towel with me, man. That's not gonna happen.
Robert's like, you better...
No way.
This is going to be the Apollo Creed Rocky.
I never had that chat with any of my coaches.
You don't throw the towel,
no.
Angelo.
No way.
Well, we did actually say if either of you caught Titan 43, the main event, Jose Torres was fighting... what's the gentleman's name? Nobry.
Yes, thank you.
Nobry.
Yes.
And he caught him with a straight right. A few more punches hit the arms, backed him up against the cage, and caught him with a clean right uppercut, dropped him down to the ground, but immediately went into guard. But by the time he even pulled Jose into his guard, the ref had called it off.
Yes. Now let me be clear on that. Now, that one I could almost argue why Nobray would be upset, because when I say stopping it, I'm used to boxing, where, remember, in boxing, Robert, we have a standing 8 count.
Yeah.
So the standing 8 count, what it does is it's supposed to give the fighter a chance to see if they could shake off any concussive state or any darkness or anything.
You get rocked and sometimes you get a concussion. Not the same thing.
Right.
You get dizzy for a few seconds and sometimes you're just out.
Right. Now in MMA, like someone like you're a grappling expert. So of course you wouldn't want somebody to just keep hitting you, and you're clearly protecting yourself like a rope-a-dope style on the ground. So you're not rocked, you're not hurt, and you could still catch someone on a submission.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between that and someone who's clearly like Trevor Berbick, like the way Trevor Berbick looked against Mike Tyson, and he was falling, and then he was trying to get up and he fell again. Like, sometimes I've seen that where I'm like, look, man, stop the fight. That's someone who, even if they were coherent, like me and Frank, we talk about in the Mark Hunt situation, he was off balance. Could Frank have fought? Absolutely. If Mark Hunt would have actually jumped on him, Frank might have had a chance to submit him.
I will say
it was smart for Mark to walk away because it convinced the referee, hey man, I should just stop this.
It'd be tough to be the referee too. He's in a tough spot because it's so easy to make a mistake. You got a split second to make a decision that's going to change someone's life.
Right.
Either because you're going to ruin his career, right, or because you're going to save his life. But there's a lot of responsibility on the line. You got to make the right decision in a split of a second, and I'd hate to be. And I think the referees always get credit for the kind of tough job they have,
Right.
And I don't think there's ever any dishonesty on their end, but it's, we see them making mistakes and they get a lot of criticism for it, but it's a tough job. Like, it's not an easy decision to make in such a short, you don't have time to think about it, right?
Yeah.
And once you jump in and you stop it, you can't go back.
Right.
Even if a split second later you realize you made a mistake, you just can't go back.
Right. Now, speaking of that fight, Jeremy, did you think that was an early stoppage with Nobray and Torres, or did you think that was right?
Very quickly on it. When I first watched it, without going back in real time there on Fight Pass, I was like, wow, that was a very, very quick stoppage, but rewinding it a couple of times, watching how his knees gave out, legs gave out, I can see why the ref jumped in there.
Okay.
Again, this might be the trend where we're seeing more and more refs stop fights early just out of safety concerns, things like that. But I agree with Professor Drysdale here. I think more tests need to be done. I think more research needs to be done as far as the impact of MMA on, with concussions and things like that.
I will say this, as a friend of mine, I'm not going to mention who, you guys probably know who he is, and I hadn't seen him in like 4 or 5 years, right? So it's kind of like when you see children grow up. If you don't see them for 4 or 5 years, you notice that, oh, that's a big change. Like, you're a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Right? But if you see him every day, you don't notice. But I hadn't seen this guy, and he recently retired, and I hadn't seen him in 4 or 5 years. And I was chatting with him a while ago, and you could see the difference.
Really?
There was something off, It was I can't quite put my finger on it. It was just the speech, the delay, the you would say the same thing 2-3 times, and I'm not saying it's because of MMA, but something definitely did happen,
Right.
I mean, like I said, we probably need more research to find out exactly what's going on, but I think that's a very unexplored aspect of MMA.
Right.
Now let's talk a little bit about the main event.
Yeah, I want to
Bellator
ask Professor
170.
Drysdale about this because Tito held that crank a little too long, and you, sir, who are the most respected person in that sport,
Thank you.
I mean, is that wrong? Is that like? What do you? I thought it was wrong. I thought it's like, look, you bastard, let him go.
I'm unarmed here. I only saw the picture. I didn't see the actual fight.
Okay.
Cranks are legal. Even in jiu-jitsu, there's cranks that are illegal. A lot of cranks that are illegal. There's a lot of gray area there. From an efficiency perspective, I teach people to crank. I remember that one fight between Dan Henderson and Anderson Silva. And he went right across the jaw, because when you crank the neck, you force your opponent to lift up his jaw. And once the jaw goes up, the neck opens up. So it's a very easy, efficient way to get to the neck. Because the problem is you got gloves on. And getting your hand underneath the chin, right, with gloves on is a nightmare. And I say this from a grappling perspective. You have no gloves on. I actually wish MMA, the part of me that wished MMA had no gloves. I think it'd be better for grapplers because it'd be so much easier to get that hand in. Like, I'll get on sometimes in practice, I'll spin like a whole round on someone's back and I can't choke them out because they have very short necks and the gloves get in the way. But the neck crank kind of solves that problem. The problem is that another thing is you can't really train that because you don't want to be cranking your opponent's neck in practice every day. That really upsets people. It's kind of, it's frowned upon, put it like that. People's like, well, that's messed up, bro. I think, everyone who trains does it to some extent, but the harder you do it, the more likely you are to get that neck. So it works.
Well, there you go.
Well, he, Ortiz in the presser admitted he did hold on to the crank a few seconds at first. Now, he had two different excuses here. First, he said, well, I didn't think Chael was tapping. I thought he was trying to, pull my hands off of him. And then about 15 minutes later, he was like, yeah, I held it a little bit because there's still ill will there. So whatever the actual reason is, I think it's probably a little bit of both.
Wasn't Rosemar suspended for similar reasons?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Rosemar did what, 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, he did it a few times.
He overdid it. It's funny, I've met
times.
Rosemar. He's the nicest guy in the world, man.
Okay.
Because when you first see him, it's like, oh, he's doing it on purpose, for sure. He's got to be
Yeah.
meanest person on the planet, right? And then you meet him, he's the opposite of what you would expect. The sweetest guy. So I'm thinking, either he just like has this alter ego that goes, that he just switches on and off when he's inside and outside the cage, or, but he's a really nice guy. I'm not sure he's doing it on purpose. I think he just doesn't know how hard he's cranking stuff.
No, let me ask you.
I think he realizes how powerful he is.
Does that happen with you? Do you go into like a Superman mode, Robert, when you're in there and you start to do your moves? Like, will you,
I'm not proud of this, but in the past, I think I have some memories back in the day, like hurting people on purpose.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not proud of this at all, but it's happened before.
Wow.
Like someone really upsets you somewhere.
Only on Cagesiders do we get people to tell us the truth.
Yeah, no, it's not something I'm proud of. Like, I'm very ashamed of it, but it's happened before. Like, the guy's giving you the hardest time, and maybe he does something to you, and you think it's on purpose. It might have been on purpose or not. Like, pokes you in the eye, and you don't want to stop, so you keep going. And then when you finally get him, you hold on for an extra second, and very unethical. But
so it's not just Tito. All right, I forgive you.
Yeah,
Tito.
it happens.
If Professor Drysdale's doing it, all right.
I think Ortiz felt a little bit bad about it. He even extended a sort of olive branch to Chael, which, of course, Chael slammed in his face and just gave him the finger. It was like, no way. I'm not taking back anything I said. So, all right, let's take our first commercial break. When we come back, we'll have a little bit more from Professor Robert Drysdale. And then a little bit later on the show, Alex Ricci joins us. This is the Cagesiders.
Cagesiders.
Welcome back to the Cagesiders. Jeremy Long, the coach, Angelo Reyes. We're with Professor Robert Drysdale talking Bellator 170. And, before we went to break, we're talking about Tito and holding the crank and things like that. But really, Professor, what is your opinion on Tito's place in MMA history?
had one of the most impressive careers in the history of MMA, without a doubt. I think he was the original Conor McGregor in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah,
he knew how to sell fights. And I think if he were in his prime today, let's say the old Tito, but he started right now, I think he would probably go on to be bigger than Conor McGregor. He just really knows how to sell fights. He had a vision that I think a lot of people were always lacked in the sport. I met him a long time ago. I first met him when I was like 16, 17. He used to come down to the gym, JSEC at the time, and train with us. And it was obvious that he saw something a lot of people didn't see. It wasn't just fighting; it was a show. I think he was a little ahead of his time in that regard. He had the hair going, the Huntington Beach bad boy, the flaming shorts, all that. There's some pro wrestling, into his persona.
Right.
And I think that if you look at a lot of other people from that generation that were equally good, if not better, just didn't have that. They didn't sell as many tickets as he still sells. So
right.
I think in that regard he was definitely ahead of his times. Technically, I think he's certainly up there. He's deserving of everything he's ever accomplished. I just wouldn't rank him the most skilled of all fighters. I think that people like GSP, I think that they would be one of my top 10, people like GSP or Jose Aldo and so on.
Right.
But when it comes to, promoting MMA and a lot of people talk about the UFC and Dana White, but I think that people neglect what people like Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, and Tito Ortiz did for the UFC. I think that in a way they did more for for MMA than Dana did.
Wow. Wow. Hey, for the listeners who don't know, we have Professor Robert Drysdale here in studio. And I got to tell you, Jeremy, I was so excited when he said he was going to come in studio because, for me, I always do the parallels of the boxing world and the MMA world. But when it really comes to the grappling game, I know he's not going to like this because he hates bragging about himself, but he's like the Floyd Mayweather of grappling. When it comes, see, there he is. He's shaking his head already. And I'll tell you, how Floyd says 49 have tried in the ring and 49 have failed. Where every single person that has been in the cage with Robert Drysdale in a professional match have all been ended with submission. This is how good this guy really is.
Oh, thank you.
And this is why, for me, Jeremy, I respect it when someone like him, who is in a teaching realm. I mean, he's still more of a teacher right now than he really is even a fighter, because he knows the type of commitment it would take to really want to get to the highest level in the UFC. He'd have to give up all the teaching that he's doing for a long period of time. But for a man to teach people on the mat, or when I see him teaching someone like Raquel, I see him teaching someone like Alessandro Ricci, I know that it's coming from experience. It's very reminiscent to when I see Frank even starting to do it now. I'm like, yeah, what you're saying is things you've actually done or you've experienced yourself. So I know you hate bragging about it, and I know you always say you're not a master of anything, Robert, but I really do. Like every single time a fighter comes here into town and they ask me, hey, Angelo, who should I work with? I always say, you go to Drysdale's. If he'll let you in the gym, you go
everyone's welcome, man. Thanks for the kind words, Angelo. I guess I love what I do, and I certainly don't feel like a master. I feel like I'm learning every day, and I agree. Most of what I know does come from experience. I've had good coaches, I've had good teachers, and I certainly learn a lot from them. But I'd say about 99% of what I do is my adaptations to what I've learned, and I like it that way. I feel like I can talk about it with more authority because I've done it myself versus someone taught it to me. I think there's a difference.
Yeah, no, and we're seeing it in your students too, because Raquel, right? We watched that fight, and she ended that fight with your favorite move. So tell us a little bit about the growth of Raquel, because I know Jeremy's very high on her.
Raquel is super talented. She has the right tools. She has the discipline. When you look at talk about a fighter, you're looking at the package, right? You're not just the talent, but you have to look at the commitment, the humility. The ability to stay consistent with training, and above all, trust your training partners, trust your coach. And I think Raquel has everything. She really has all that. And this is, ironically, she's been with me for a while, but this is the first camp I was actually able to allocate considerable amount of time into helping her. And I think it really showed. I think her last fight, the one she lost, the one before the last one, I was there, but I wasn't giving her the attention that, she really needed. And that's I blame myself a little bit. That was on me, and I really could have been more present, and I wasn't. So I remember next time I make sure I'm going to be there, and it's not going to go the same way. In fact, from now on, it's not going to go the same way.
Wow.
I'll be very surprised if she ever loses in her division again, because she's not only has she improved a lot since, I think we finally got to the point where we're on the same page, and we know what needs to be done, and I think we found like a very, very good recipe. Like it's going to be, I mean, eventually, someone might beat it, but it's going to be a while. Like it's not going to be anytime soon. As long as we stick to the recipe, right? She's spent a lot of time into work on her jiu-jitsu, and now what we're doing is just transitioning her sport jiu-jitsu into MMA, like making those adaptations that I took so long to make, and it was an uphill battle, making those adaptations, because you get used to a certain style your whole life, and now you got to change that to suit a different rule set.
Right.
And that's what's going on. So I'm able to give a lot of my personal experience to people like Raquel, and instead of taking her 8-9 years to understand the things that I took me 8-9 years to understand, I can get her to understand in 8 weeks. Right. So, I think that we're on the right track now, and I can see her with the Invicta belt very soon, and right after that in the UFC and winning.
Wow.
Yeah, and speaking of, she won 4 out of her last 5. Her only loss coming via split to Colleen Schneider, who made her debut at Bellator 170 and won. Her 4 other losses, though, Angelo: Raquel Pennington, Amanda
Top
Nunes,
5.
Sarah McMahon.
Champion. Top 5.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
When you even think about her losses, Robert, she lost to the best in the UFC
and
right
that's
now.
changing, guys. That's changing. From now on, it's not going to be like that.
So Robert here is saying if Raquel fights any of those girls that she lost to from before,
she'll give them a run for their money, very likely beat them all.
Wow.
Here's the thing. None of them have the jiu-jitsu she has. I'd be willing to bet money on that. Like it's...
Robert's got a lot of money, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But thanks. I wish.
Thanks a lot.
But I think she's like far ahead from the competition when it comes to jiu-jitsu, and her wrestling is certainly there. So we're just putting it together. So I think most of the hard work has been done in the last few years. Now we're piecing it together and just polishing it, right? Just making it flawless.
Man, that makes me excited, especially when a coach is really resonating with their fighter the way Robert is with Raquel. I'm very excited. When is she fighting again? Do you know? Do you get to make that call at all? Like, does Shannon call you and say?
No. Okay. She has a manager. Like, okay. Yeah, he deals with that. But from last I heard, there's some other girl that's fighting for the title, and I think she's going to get the winner from that fight, but that's nothing. That's all negotiating still, nothing on paper right yet. But I don't think any time before June, to be honest. But maybe. It's hard to say. She's ready. She's hungry. She's got a big jiu-jitsu tournament coming up into March, and after that, she's ready for whatever. So she's hungry.
Well, big news today with Alessandro Ricci getting Paul Felder as his opponent. He's going to talk about that today later on. So I know that Alessandro, when he came here to Vegas, started working with you and having you do all of the grappling with him. Can you talk a little bit about what you think of him? I know that he was on the mat with Kevin Lee and doing stuff with your students.
I'm not saying this because he's here and he's listening, but I was really impressed. Like I said, when I'm looking at the package, I'm looking at, like, sometimes someone walks through the door and they don't have, not say this is Alex, but like it's happened before, people don't have the skills, right? They're just skills are not there. But you see something else. You see something else in that person that you can't really teach. You see commitment, you see discipline, you see humility, you see heart. Right, and then once I see those, I'm like, okay, leave the technique to me. Like, I can get you there. If you give me the things that I can't teach, right? You give me the tools, I know I can make a champion. And I think Alex has, other than the technique, obviously, but I saw in him like those qualities, and I think they're hard to find. I think there's I call it the tough generation. A lot of them just want to be a fighter because they want to see themselves on TV. They want their face on a poster and. It's like my issue with amateurs a lot of times because they don't always behave like they behave like amateurs, right? And everything they do, they just want to fight because they want to fight, but they don't understand the time and the commitment that goes behind it. But I think Alex, like he definitely has all those qualities, and I can see him in the top, very top echelon of the UFC very soon. It's just one of those things. It takes time, just keep bringing them over. We'll take care of the rest. That's all I need. I actually always tell people the hardest thing you'll ever do is walking through that door. Everything else is on us. The hardest thing is leaving the house, walking through the door. Everything else on us.
Right.
I mean, a lot of everything that Robert's saying is exactly what drew me to Alessandro too, to be his striking coach and eventually his head coach, because I feel that from him every single day. And everybody at Mayweather's, Jeremy, everybody at Mayweather's loves this guy. Most MMA fighters don't even get the really trained the way Alessandro's training there, where all the other Mayweather fighters are helping him.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. It's going to be fun. We want Conor next. That's me and Robert are saying Conor McGregor when you're ready. Richie's right here.
If he gets Conor on the ground, game over.
I think. Because of that loss to Nate Diaz, people are like, oh, his ground is not there. I think he might be better than people give him credit for on the ground. Like, I think if he's smart, and I think he is a very smart fighter, you got to give it to him.
Yes.
I think he's a very intelligent guy. He knows how to take care of his career, and he has done so very well so far. If he's smart, he's working on the ground. Because like that, I think most people agree that would be his Achilles heel. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually a lot better than than we got to see that Nate Diaz fight. He was really tired, so that's one thing. When you're tired like that, I've been there before. You go from you turn into a white belt very quickly. And that's true for anyone.
Except the difference with you, Robert, is every time I've seen you tired, you always tap out your opponent.
I don't know about that, but thanks.
Well, the one last shout out to my good friend who you tapped out last time, Ryan Spann.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Great fight. He's from my hometown.
Okay.
I got to give a shout out to my guy there.
No, for sure, man.
And Ryan Spann's a hell of a fighter. No, seriously.
No, super tough, man. My toughest fight, without a doubt.
Yeah, man. A hell of a fight. Maybe a rematch down the road. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just kidding. Right? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and spending time with us today, Professor. So,
no, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, one shout out, man. If people want to get a hold of your gym, come check it out. Come roll on the mats.
Yes, we're on 2000 South Rainbow, right between Sahara and Oki. We offer classes for beginners, kickboxing, wrestling, judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, gi, no gi, MMA beginners, advanced. So, we're very proud of the fact we're the whole package. Children, women's, men in their 40s. We kind of try to keep men in their 40s away from the animals, and let them have fun without killing themselves.
He was staring at me when he said that, too. Thank you so much.
But, yeah, we offer a little bit of everything. So, definitely come check us out. And
where can they find you online?
DrysdaleJujitsu.com.
And then, Professor, on all your social media stuff, what is it?
At Robert Drysdale Jiu-Jitsu for Instagram and at Robert Drysdale on Twitter.
All right.
There you go. All right. When we come back, we'll talk to one of your students right now, Alessandro Ricci, about his upcoming fight, the news. He's got a change in opponent and venue and everything else. So we'll have more with me, the coach, Alex. When we come back, we are the Cagesiders.
Cagesiders.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Jeremy Long, along with the coach, Angelo Reyes. We're joined now by Alessandro Ricci, UFC lightweight. Man, you look like Rocky Balboa right now. You got the hoodie, he's got the gloves on, the little gloves with no fingers on them and everything else. You been climbing steps in Philadelphia? What the hell are you doing?
Once in a while.
Well, Coach, what's going on with this guy?
It's funny because we had Robert Drysdale on the show earlier in studio, and he was today was Monday, so he was in the class with Robert, and Robert was showing him some of the stuff that he's going to be pulling off on his new opponent. The coach is always the last to know on these things. I don't even know what the hell the game plan's supposed to be now. So why don't you tell us, Richie, what happened with your manager, Tiago, and telling you who the new opponent is?
Well, my new opponent is going to be Paul Felder, and I'm very excited for this opportunity. It's going to be an exciting matchup. We're two great strikers, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who I fight. I focus on myself, becoming, just train myself, make sure I'm always ready to go. Doesn't matter who steps in the cage with me.
Now, what do you, and I mean, early assessment here, what do you see in a guy like Paul Felder that either, maybe you can take advantage of, or maybe you see like, okay, I gotta shore this up, make sure he doesn't catch me this way. What do you see in Felder?
Well, he's definitely very athletic. He's been in the game for a while now, has a lot of experience going into the UFC and as a martial artist. So he's definitely a tough dude, but he's just a man. He breathes and bleeds just like me. So I'm just going to be going in there, giving it all I got when I step into that octagon. And I'm excited because he is a striker, Muay Thai fighter, and that's what my foundation is. That's what I fell in love with when I became a martial artist, and this is just another test for me to overcome.
Are we going to see a straight up Muay Thai?
I'll tell you, it's funny because it all happened actually pretty fast. We were at the Mayweather gym when Tiago had messaged us, and we were just about to start our training regimen over there. And then Tiago goes, "Hey, man, bad news. Alvaro Herrera got injured." And Herrera got injured. And we're like, darn. And he's like, so here's the opponents there. Here's the opponent that they're giving Ricci. So then I'm like, okay. So I don't want to, say any names, to cause any embarrassments or anything, but they gave him the name. So I'm like, okay, I'll let Ricci know at some point during our training. So I'm in the main ring at Mayweather's with Ricci. We're doing the mitts, and I'm catching it. He's feeling good. He's looking good. He's doing all of his moves. So then I'm like, hey, so by the way, just want to let you know, Alvaro Herrera has got injured, and they're giving you this guy as your opponent. Well, what do you want to do? He's like, oh, great, I'll take it. Just tell Tiago, no problem. I'm like, okay, so you don't really care? He's like, I really don't care, coach. I just want to fight. I've been wanting to fight since last year in Toronto. So, I didn't like that I got pulled out of that court, and I want to really just showcase my skills. So, whoever it is, I don't care. So then I told Tiago, hey, just let him know, no problem. So literally like 2 hours later, Tiago goes, hey, so Felder's opponent fell out. So would Ricci be available if we moved his fight 8 days earlier? And I'm like, wow, so you want him to go to Brooklyn? And he's like, yeah, I mean, if you think so. I mean, where's he at in his weight anyways? And I said, well, Ricci, I mean, this guy, man, he's always ready. In shape. Yeah, he's like, he just weighed himself right now. Mayweather's, he's 170 pounds. And he's like, I mean, I told him, I said, he could go fight in Denver if you needed him to next week. Seriously, the guy's ready. And then he goes, okay, well, let me know what he says. So then I told Ricci, I'm like, hey, so there's a chance that you might have to fight 8 days sooner. Maybe Brooklyn. What do you think? And it's against Paul Felder. And he was like, awesome. That's fantastic, coach. I'm looking forward to that too. So I'm like, geez, does anything shake this guy's confidence at all? Like, maybe I should slap him a little. I don't know. This guy's too confident. So then, come to find out today, the UFC made the announcement that it is going to be Paul Felder versus Alessandro Ricci, UFC Halifax, UFC Fight Night 105. And it's a heck of a card, Jeremy. I don't know if you've even gotten a chance to see it yet, but the main event is now Travis Brown versus Derek Lewis.
Oh, so I got a new main event since I guess JDS couldn't get
He's out. He's okay. And then co-main event is Johnny Hendricks versus Hector Lombard.
Ooh,
we got Carla Esparza versus Randa Marcos and Cesar Ferreira versus Elias Theodoro. That's a friend of yours, right, Al?
Yes, sir. That's one of my first training partners when I started at mixed martial arts. So we're very good friends.
Yeah, see? So, and then check this out. We just talked about this earlier when we were talking about Raquel, Jeremy. Liz Carmouche versus Sarah McMahon.
Yeah.
That's in the card.
Okay.
Jack Marshman versus Thiago Santos.
Wow.
Paul Felder versus Alessandro Ricci. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Nordine Taleb. Ryan James, I think he's Canadian also. He's fighting Gerald Merciart. And
you just butchered that name. I don't even know what name you're talking about. I know you butchered that.
It's going to be exciting, though. And there's Sam Cecilia versus Gavin Tucker, who just got signed into UFC.
Right.
And then the first fight is Reginaldo Vieira versus Faraz's brother, I think. Ayman Sahabi. I think that's Faraz Sahabi's brother.
I think we need to do a name pronunciation class. I think that's what you and I need to do because we butcher names all the time. You noticed earlier when we were talking to Drysdale, neither of us said Raquel's last name.
That's true.
Pa'aluhi.
That's true. But it is Pa'aluhi?
Yeah.
I just always call her Raquel. So.
I do too, man. And I apologize. I just don't like butchering people.
We're going to have to get her on the show now that we feel this bad. She has to be on the show next week or something.
We owe people. Well, let me ask you, Coach. I mean, when you get an opponent change like that come in, now, I mean, is it an immediate change to what you guys are doing, or is it just full steam ahead with the training you guys are already implemented?
Yeah, no, in the style, and Ricci knows this, and all the, even Frank Mir, everybody who I've trained before in the past knows this. In my style of coaching, I make sure that the fighters know it will really not matter who you fight. That's my job. It's like what Robert said earlier. Our job is to teach you what plays you need to have during the fight, but that shouldn't change you as a fighter. So, whoever we have. I mean, literally right now they said Paul Felder. Well, what if during the week of the fight, Paul Felder gets injured? And then they said, oh, now you got to fight so-and-so. Well, then would that really change anything? Not at all. So the regimen stayed the same. The working out stayed the same. Him consistently going to Drysdale's, that all stayed the same. Us going to Mayweather stayed the same. The sparring stayed the same. Nothing's changing. Whether it's Paul Felder or Conor McGregor, honestly, it will not matter. It's all about Alessandro Ricci, and I'm very excited as a coach, and as his coach, I'm very excited. Just like you could see Robert getting excited over a guy like this, because This is what I was telling you from before, Jeremy. A lot of times they miss how talented and how great fighters like Alessandro Ricci really is. This is a man who, and I don't know if Paul Felder lived in Thailand for 3 years, but he needs to know that if he wants to go straight Muay Thai with this man, he's going against a man who has fought in Thailand in the what's the arena called, the main one in Thailand?
I fought in Ratchadamnung Stadium.
That's the one.
I fought on also the King's Cup. I fought on some of the biggest stages in my Muay Thai career, which I was blessed to have that opportunity. And so, yeah, I've been around, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I'm kind of used to this flow of sometimes fighters backing down and getting injured and last-minute replacements. When I was fighting in Thailand, I wouldn't even know who I would be fighting until I stepped into the ring, and it's like, oh, I'm fighting that guy? Okay. 2-time Lumpini world champion? Great. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, and you see what I mean? This is the type of fighter that really the UFC loves, that they will flourish with, because the guy literally does not care who he's fighting. He only cares that he gets to fight again, So he's open for a great fight, great finish, and then move on to the next one, whenever the next one is supposed to be.
Now, let me ask you, Alex. Now, you guys briefly flirted with the Brooklyn card. Would you have preferred to have been on the Brooklyn card facing Paul Felder, or are you just as happy with Halifax?
I'm just as happy as Halifax. I love Canada. I'm representing Canada, and hey, it's my home. So I'm glad that it's in Halifax still.
Now, your friends and family amped that you're going to be in the country? They're going to make the trek over?
Absolutely. They're all going to. I invited everybody, so it's going to be one big celebration afterwards.
Drake's even coming, I think. No.
Drake is coming. You better watch out. If he takes a liking to you, apparently.
Maybe if I'm lucky, he'll write a song about me in the future.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Actually, let's work on that, WMEIMG. Did they represent Drake, Jeremy? Do you know?
I'm not sure if they represent everyone else, so it's probably a good shot that they represent him in something. They may not represent his music career. You have different agents for different things in entertainment world. So, but I'm sure they probably represent him in his TV or movies or whatever else he does.
Right. Hey, real quick, Richie, can you tell us a little bit about your training with Robert Drysdale and how much of that is really resonating with you right now too?
Well, the moment I walked into his gym, it felt like home to me, because it reminded me of my gym, M1 Thai Boxing, back home, and just the whole setup and the atmosphere. All of his students are very welcoming. It's very professional. And Robert, he's an MMA and grappling genius. He's been through it all. He's dedicated his life to the sport and to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts. And these are the type of people that I want to be around, so that it excels my game overall. And yeah, it's one of the best gyms I've ever been to, period.
Now, let me ask you, of course, you've had a fight so far in the UFC, dropped a decision. Mm-hmm. From that fight to this fight, I mean, what did you learn as far as being in the cage and everything else that you're going to implement? Are you going to get less hesitant to throw? Or I mean, what did you, I guess, take away from that first fight that you're going to try to implement in the second one?
Well, I'm definitely a new martial artist, a new fighter. You're going to be seeing a different Alessandro Ricci coming into this next belt. This is on February 19th. This is going to be my real debut. And I've been training for this moment for a very, very long time. I've been preparing my whole life for this. And it was unfortunate that I didn't get the decision, but things happen. You know, it was a last-minute fight. There are no excuses. You know, I had the opportunities to win that belt, but it didn't go my way that night. You know, everybody has their day, but I come back better, stronger, wiser, and yeah, just things happen for a reason. We lose so that, you know, we could reflect, we could learn, improve as martial artists. And right now with my team, with training with Angelo Reyes, Robert Drysdale, Anna Hulatin, my whole team, I'm very confident going into this bout.
Now, very quickly before we go to break, earlier we were talking about Tito Ortiz.
Yep.
His impact on the sport. Personally, you know, what do you think about, or what do you think of Tito's legacy in MMA?
He finished on a great note, besides the fact that he held that choke a little bit too long. I actually got really mad because with neck cranks, 2-3 seconds more, and he could have snapped his neck. It could have been very serious. Big John McCarthy jumped on him right away, and he would not let go. And it could have been serious. So we got to get a hold on that kind of stuff. And you know, I know it is tough. You know, when there's a lot of emotions going in there and a lot of crap talking back and forth. But you gotta keep that under control.
Yeah.
But so overall, he's a champ. He's a great martial artist. He brought so much to the sport, just like Robert said earlier. You know, he's paved the way.
Right.
For a lot of us. So great to, you know, it was great to see his whole career and the way he finished his last 2 fights. Good job.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you as always, Alessandro, for stopping in. You know, you and Anna are our 2 favorite guests. We love talking to both of you guys. So when we come back, we're going to have a little bit more. We'll talk a little bit of boxing. Right, Angelo? Is
yes,
that right?
Sir.
Is that what we're going to do?
Yes, sir.
All right,
It's
we'll do that when
week.
we come back. Come back from break. Jeremy Long, Angelo Reyes. We are the Cagesiders.
Cagesiders.
Welcome back to the show. Jeremy Long here with Angelo Reyes. You know, we had some great guests on today. Professor Robert Drysdale, Alessandro Ricci with his breaking news versus Paul Felder. That's going to be a good fight, man.
Oh, fight of the night. I'm expecting a 50.
50?
Yes,
okay.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Hopefully, yeah, okay. Yeah, I won't predict. I'm just going to enjoy the fight.
Right.
But we got some Showtime boxing coming up. A big one. Leo Santa Cruz hoping to avenge his only loss, right? Only loss versus
is that
Carl
the
Frampton?
only loss? We boxing expert Anna Hulatin. Is that Leo Santa Cruz's only loss?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jeremy.
Me. I'm
sorry I doubted you.
I appreciate the love for the boxing expert, but you doubted me. Yeah, his only loss. Majority decision versus Carl Frampton. And this is, you were saying in the break here, almost just a continuation of their first fight.
Yeah, no, I really think that this is really just going into round 13. On their last fight, it's an epic battle. Easily could have been fight of the year in many experts' eyes. And these two really bring it. And, you know, Carl Frampton has been here in Vegas training for the last, I think, 3 weeks now. Right. So, you know, he came all the way from Europe already to be ready with his Vegas air. And Leo Santa Cruz, you know, Anna Hulatin, I think, just interviewed him for her show at the Shadow League. And you know, he seemed like super pumped to actually get into this fight. It's almost like she was telling me, like, it's almost like the first fight didn't even really bother him. I mean, you know, obviously a loss bothers you, but he knows the adjustments he needs to make to go into the next one. And in watching the fight, I got to tell you, man, I understand why Frampton won, but the momentum of that fight was shifting in the last parts of the fight. So if this is truly the continuation of Frampton Santa Cruz, I believe that we're gonna head into this fight and Santa Cruz is probably gonna start pretty good. And you know, most likely it will go the full distance.
Right.
But if someone was gonna stop someone, I'm gonna pick Leo Santa Cruz to win. So, in fact, I'm going to just stick with that one. I like Frampton, but I'm sticking with Leo Santa Cruz. He'll win, and if somebody was going to stop anyone, I'm going to pick Leo Santa Cruz, stoppage, 11th round.
Oh, late. We'll get a late stoppage.
Late stoppage. You know what it is Leo Santa Cruz really showed me the body punching in the last part of that first fight.
Right.
And with Frampton, what Frampton showed is that he's really a good boxer. Like, he understands how to make adjustments. So if Leo Santa Cruz really sticks to that long jab, that nice, stick to a nice long jab, stay in rhythm, work his body punching, I think that we're going to find out. We're going to find out how great a shape Carl Frampton is in. Again, both of these guys, they're young, they're hungry, they're both going to go at it. And we just talked about the first Showtime boxing card, how that was a fight of the year, right, Jeremy? Already, Badou Jack, James DeGale, draw. So what if it ends up a draw again, brother? What if we get 2 draws in a row? What do you think?
Well, still, as long as it's a good fight, it's one thing if it's a draw and it's a bad fight. But Badou Jack, James DeGale, that was one hell of a fight. So, you hope for a winner and a loser kind of thing. I don't really like draws, who really does? But that was a great fight. So if Leo Santa Cruz and Carl Frampton give us that fight again and it's a draw, I can't say I'm going to be upset. I'm not going to be really upset. But I think, and I've talked to Santa Cruz in the past. He's a very good dude. He's got a good head on his shoulder. He's a very smart guy. Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's gonna pull this one out. If he does, third fight, they got to do a third fight, right? They got to do a rubber match, right?
Yeah, no, I would think that if this could be as exciting as how Gotti and Ward was able to build that.
Yeah.
Why not? It's what boxing wants, boxing for us to start the first 2 major cards of the year with such big blockbuster fights in the first month. No, this is amazing. And to be happening on Chinese New Year too, right? The year of the rooster. Right? The year of the rooster. So I'm going Santa Cruz.
I love your little just facts. It's Chinese New Year.
Me. The coach is a little quirky at times. So
what does that have to do with? Okay, whatever. I'll give you that one. It's Chinese New Year. Hopefully, it's gonna be a great damn fight, right?
You know what I was thinking is because a rooster, and Ari was messing with me a little bit about this earlier. I was thinking rooster, and I've been in Mexico many times, and they have lots of roosters in Mexico, Ari. I just want to let you know. You don't need an alarm because the rooster will wake you up.
What the hell does that have to do with anything, Angelo? Jeez.
We're just having fun at the end of the show.
You know what? Let's call Professor Robert Drysdale now. Ask him his thoughts on the roosters and how they impact roosters and Chinese New Year and how they impact fighters in different situations. Maybe that was something Tito got in his brain. That's why he held the crank a little too hard. It's Chinese New Year. He's trying to atone for things. Maybe that's what it is. No?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right, Jeremy. I'm going to agree.
Well, another great show with my good friend Angelo. I never give you a chance to shout out your Twitter. Give me a shout out where people can follow you.
It's Twitter, I believe, is at Reyes Striking, and then Instagram is at Reyes Boxing. And again, guys, you can find me on Facebook. It's Angelo Reyes on Facebook. It's the one with the picture of me and Frank on it. Is it me and Frank? Ari, you're the one that just looked at it.
I think so.
Okay, all right. I think it's the one with me and Frank.
You gripe at me for like 3 weeks because you're like, hey, you never give me a chance to give a shout out to my followers or whatever, so people can follow. I finally do. You don't even know your own handles.
I don't actually run that whole. I have a PR person that does it.
Thanks a lot, President Trump. We're blaming it on him. All right, I'm Jeremy Long, the coach Angelo Reyes. Thank you to our guest, Professor Robert Drysdale, UFC lightweight Alessandro Ricci, to Ari, and everyone here at ESPN Studios in Las Vegas. Anna Hulaton laughing and trying not to laugh behind me. We appreciate everything. We thank you for listening to us. Subscribe to us on iTunes. We'll see you next time. We are the Cagesiders.